Hello everybody, and welcome back to another product review. We're going to be looking at Numenera. I saw this starter set and I instantly bought it just because of the name, simply because my homebrew world is Luminaria, and it sounds so similar, so I'm probably going to like whatever's in here, right? Jokes aside, everybody, this is one of the most innovative settings I've ever checked out, and I love it. Numenera is the ninth world. It's set 1 billion years into the future, an unfathomable amount of time, and it's called the ninth world because our world has come and gone. Extinction has hit and we've run our course, as well as the next 7 in a row, leading up to this 9th iteration, which brings us to today's date. In recorded history, we've only got about 600 to maybe 900 years back, and that makes it really hard for us to have any reference of anything that's gone on in the last 8 iterations of the world's evolutions. Like, many of the leftover remnants from these civilizations seem like mystic artifacts of technological importance. Many of them are so advanced, it's unexplainable to the modern eye, and we call those Numenera. There's also other smaller artifacts that you'd be able to find called ciphers, and they're more of like a one-use magic item, but a Numenera could just be anything. It could be that magic sword, or maybe it's a walking mech of a city. It's that broad of a spectrum. And we're going to be reviewing the starter set today. This starter set was brought to you by Monty Cook Games, and I picked it up in my local game store for about 25 bucks. Believe it or not, this came out in 2016, and trust me, it's a realization for me too. That was a long time ago. When looking over the starter set, they like to put an emphasis on story and narration, and that's really emphasized by the way that the DM actually interacts with the world. He's not really going to be rolling to attack you. You're going to be rolling to defend against different types of things, but the DM has a lot of really interesting interactions when it comes to XP and even something called GM intrusions, which we'll get to a little later. But hey, let's get into what's in the box. We've actually got a list of everything in the box. Those are cool, but a waste of paper. I can actually see with my eyes. They do include, though, a cheat sheet for all the general mechanics that you're going to question. Or this is one of the best things for a starter set or learning a new system. Just taking this, putting it in the middle of the table. That way, whenever the mechanic comes up, somebody can go, yeah, I'll do that. And on the back of this here, it's going to explain general concepts for the game, like pools, effort, edge, assets, and skills. Skills, self-explanatory, everybody knows what those are. But skills are pretty endless in this game. If there's not a specific skill for you, make it up, write it in. But okay it with the GM first. Then assets, effort, and edge also apply to any of the roles that you're going to be making. Assets, other people or yourself for items. Assets can be counted as other people helping you with a role, or even your own items doing so to make the check a little bit easier for yourself. How you'd be able to use these roles is you would expend effort to do something, and depending on how hard the task is, that would be how much effort you have to expend. And that's where the edge comes in. You'll be able to use your edge to minimize that expenditure. And where are you going to be taking those points from? That's your pools. You don't have a traditional health pool in this game. You have might, speed, and intelligence. And these 3 are technically your health. When one of these gets depleted to 0, that's when you get an affliction. And it's a really interesting mechanic because when all 3 of these pools deplete, now you're gonna start dying. But when one of these pools deplete, you're just impaired, which is relatively easy to deal with and easy to recover from. But after that condition, you're going to be debilitated. And debilitated is really hard to recover from. You're going to need your allies immediately. And after that, I think everybody knows what happens there. When you hit 0, you die. And as far as I can tell, it's permanent death in this game. But who knows? Maybe there's a mech or machine that's gonna help with that later in line. And I was just waving this thing around, but the character sheets are awesome. You've actually got a fancy little design right in here. You'll be able to see the artwork for each one of the characters. And each one of these characters here have a backstory as well. And all of these backstories happen to intertwine with the 5 different characters, which in my opinion adds an extra level of detail for you as the GM and the players at the table. You're really able to really get into it when you say, okay, you two are friends and you escape prison. Character creation is a little bit more broad, but you don't have to worry about that for the Numenera Starter Set. But if you were going to think about it, there's glaives, nanos, and jacks. Jack of all trade, a nano is somebody who harnesses magic, but it's in a technological sense, like technomancers, but nobody really understands the source of those powers. And then a glaive is just going to be your warrior. And you're able to customize in many different ways, and you're actually representing your character in kind of a phrase. Much like this, Kaladin is a strong glaive who wears a sheen of ice. You're saying your description, your type, and your focus. Your description being what you're good at, your type essentially being your class, and then wears of sheen of ice is what you do to customize things that way. It's like your subclass. If we were gonna relate things to D&D, which I tend to do because I play that one a lot. So it may seem like there's not very many choices to choose from, but just with those three, there's so much variation, and they encourage customization as much as you can. If it's not in the book, don't worry about it. This is essentially a rules-light system, even though some of these combat mechanics might suggest otherwise. I do want to reference experience and GM intrusions. These things are really unique and I think custom to the Cypher system for which this game runs on. The GM, like I said earlier, doesn't make any rolls, but they do have these GM intrusions. Essentially, a GM intrusion is giving somebody a hurdle to jump over during one of the tasks that they're trying to perform. And if they overcome this hurdle, they end up getting experience. And experience is really awesome in this game because it really stops the argument of, are we going to play milestone or are we going to play experience-based? Because you're doing both. Essentially, you get experience for milestones and you're going to get experience for different things that you perform in the world. And experience is something that's awesomely used. It can be used for something as small as straight up just advantage. But if you were going to save them up to 10, you can't have more than 10. But if you were going to save them up, you could spend them on short-term, medium-term, or even some long-term advancements, ranking up in tiers. And in this game, there's not levels, there's tiers. Tiers 1 to 6. It's not necessarily a vertical leveling system. It's a horizontal leveling system. So you're going to be able to level up your different skills as well. So you're going to feel like you level up a decent amount more than you do in other games. And it's like RuneQuest in a way, where you actually level up after every session. But I think this is a great addition to experience in general. And if you were going to have a system that had some horizontal leveling added into any other games, this is a great basis to do so. We've also got a map included, but my art teacher would probably say this to me. I see a lot of white space here, and white space doesn't have to be white, by the way. It could have a lot more put on here. But, oh my gosh, is there a lot of white space on this side. It's nice when things are double-sided, and that's a trend that they didn't happen to do. Maybe not back in 2016, because this has been out for a while, so I can't fault it too much. You're also going to get D20 and 1D6. These are the only two dice you're really going to need in this game, but it would be nice to get just a couple of more, so that way you could essentially roll your advantage when you do your experience. The player's book that describes how you're going to be going about the world in Numenera, and we've got the Dungeon Master's book. This book here is going to explain the different intricacies of the world, which, to be honest, when you start to get into Numenera, this is just a good read for anyone who likes the lore, because there's so many different things that could be in the game. It's almost like a smorgasbord of the weird, and a lot of people will jump to a dystopian future, if you will, but it's not necessarily dystopian. It's more like dystopian, but with a side of hope. It's already starting to rebuild and regrow. So it's almost like sun or solar punk, if anyone has seen anything like that. If not, I'll leave a picture up here somewhere. But all in all, everybody, I believe this would be a great setting to jump into, especially for people who are new to role-playing games in general. You won't have to explain too much to them, and there's a cheat sheet for all the particulars. And for any of you who are like D&D and Pathfinder purists, then I want you to know that this will still be right up your alley. It's not necessarily the same setting, but it gives you the same feel. You are powerful in the world, and you're able to change it through your actions. And I think that's really important for different kinds of games that give you that power fantasy. All in all, though, I would give this setting specifically a 5 out of 5. But if I was gonna like rank specifically what's in the box, it's gonna be like 2 or 3. They do have a little bit of leniency here because it came out several years ago, but no double-sided maps. Some of the stuff in here could be done a little bit better, but it was pretty cheap. But I will say, the best thing that they did here was the art. On every single page, you've got amazing artwork. And I seriously mean every single page. I would make a bet with you guys to find one that doesn't have some form of artwork. But for me, that's going to be it, everybody. If you liked this review, make sure to like, comment, or subscribe, and we'll see you all later.